And there we have it, the conclusion of the Alderaan arc, everything in Drasil, and getting set up for the next arc, the next span of time of the 100 Years quest. And I've been, the last 2 weeks I've been very curious as to whether or not Alderaan was going to be dead or not, whether or not he was going to be down or if he was going to get up and have some final form. I'm I'm honestly perfectly okay with him being done, with him being dead, because his fight his fight really, like, there was a lot involved in reality in order to defeat one. In the whole idea of fighting Alderaan, one is you have to get past you have to get past his large body in general. I mean, they got to go on while he was still asleep. Even in the event of, like, you're able to get past it before that, there's still the danger of, the god seeds and the main Alderaan god seed, because you're like, in the idea of defeating him, you have to take down all four god seeds, the other four god seeds, who are all pretty powerful. Like, even in, like, people like Doom, who didn't have, like, he was not, like, in terms of, oh, he's not like a super durable character, but he's still got a super broken ability. Same thing with Gears. Same thing with Wolfen. Wolfen, though, it's kind of weird because he gets kind of, like, weird technical defeated, but he's not, like, straight killed like the rest of them. Whereas when it comes to, like, Metro was probably the easiest in reality to take down, just because when it came to him, he didn't have any broken powers. This was just large numbers of overwhelming force. But like I said, when it comes down to it, all you have to take down these four pretty powerful characters, and then you're on a timer of the God Seed Alderaan, and you have to end up taking him out before, a couple minutes or whatever goes by, and Alderaan just ends up spawning his minions again, and then goes back to full power. It's a weird kind of, like, again, race against the clock in order to defeat him, because unlike him, the people fighting him are going to be on a very strict level of power and energy to go off of. They don't have infinite stamina, and they don't have nearly as much as Alderaan. So it's just like, when you get down to that lower levels of, like, weakening the God Seed, it's still going to be a lot of effort in order to take them down. And Dragon Force Natsu, yeah, Dragon Force Natsu is a very, it's Natsu at his peak that he currently can do on his own. And I know that there's stuff, we got stuff like Natsu's Aetherius Dragon Force and, Savage Dragon Fire stuff, but that's something that he can't just, his Aetherius stuff, like, he can't do at will. Like, we know, at least as of right now, he can't just pop it whenever he feels like it. And then when it comes to, like, his Savage Dragon Fire, that's situational, and it's way more dangerous than Dragon Force. Because with Dragon Force, it's like, okay, cool, I ended up beating it, or I ended up using this, and even if you miss and lose and mess it up, it's like, okay, you're out of magic, you're putting your chance at possibly dying. Whereas when it comes to Savage Dragon Fire, it's like, anywhere those flames touch after this attempt, it's fucked until you run into Wendy, or any way that you would have a substantial means of healing. So when it comes to the defeat of Alderaan, like I said, I'm alright with it. Alderaan is, I still really like the arc. I thought it was really good. There was a lot of really good character moments in it, and a lot of really fun hype stuff, and I thought it was excellent. I really enjoyed the way that it went into, and the way that it set up for more. I really, actually, my favorite thing, actually, thinking about it, is the stuff with him, like, challenging Acnologia 100 years after, like, this genocidal campaign started. I'm kind of hoping that, because Wolfen technically didn't die all the way, that maybe Alderaan will kind of, like, live on as, like, he'll become like a seedling or something. I don't know. I'm not too sure on it, and I'm not too against him being dead or something like that, where you have just kind of like a tiny version of him trying to recover, and it's got some scheme going on. Maybe we can actually have we can actually do something with, like, the Obra plotline that never really kind of did anything with, because that was just a weird one, thinking back to it. I won't rant on it right now, but thinking back to it, of just, like, it was something that wasn't important, but it was something that was possibly set up. It was something that was possible to be important in the future, never really was. Which, again, it's like, weird. Okay, I mean, we didn't require it, but it was just something that's been in our mind, and it should have been some form of resolution. I guess the resolution was Zeref dying, and then all his demons just kind of crumbling away. I hiccuped right there. Sorry about that. Anyway, as it were, we got to this chapter. We have Eleftheria. I still don't trust Eleftheria at all. I still don't trust him. And he's got that weird portal-looking mural. We haven't really seen it in a good while. Because keep this in mind. When was the last time we actually saw this thing, like, in the current story? Like, the last time we had a chapter where seeing this thing was when a chapter came out. I think it was back when they defeated Mersobi, which again would make sense because that was the last time they defeated a dragon god, which also was like, geez, like what, a year and a half ago or something? I'm trying to think. This is a long arc. This was a pretty damn long arc, and especially like, well, when it comes down to like the chapter length, if you were just to reread it, it wouldn't feel too long. But obviously, this came out because it's like what, this is chapter 63. And we started at, I want to say, like, just trying to remember, 27? I think chapter 27 is when it started. So, you know, that's half of the series. Actually, it's more than half, because that's more than 30 chapters. Which, again, is still pretty hefty. Like, a year and a half of length for a Fairy Tail arc is still a lot. Like, I remember when the chapter came out, when we first saw Alderaan, and I was like, holy shit, dude's crazy. And now we're here, and he's dead. So what's next? Obviously, we got Selene, we still got Biernus, we still have Ignia, we still have the suspiciousness of Eleftheria, Diablos, the White Witch. I still think Eleftheria is going to end up becoming a villain. I still have my theory of the 7 dragon gods, and there's just one of them will be Natsu, and then we'll get someone as a last member, probably being Eleftheria or somebody that Eleftheria works for. Something. Because come on, just really quick, looking at that weird thing in the wall that he's got with the dragon gods on it, it's like a portal. Even like the area around it doesn't look like it was naturally there, like it was some way kind of like magically shifted or something. It's something I can't trust, and I can't trust Eleftheria. It's too suspicious. Well, anyway. After that, like, it gets back to Ignia, and Ignia's just hanging out like in some like volcanic area. He's hyped up. He's like, all right, good job, Natsu, sweet. Just keep burning like bigger, brighter, and hotter, and then eventually we'll reduce the world to nothing. Like, he really wants just to see the dude just completely reduce the world to ash. That's really what he's hyped about right now. I do really want to see Ignia's city. Because I think we can all assume every dragon god is going to have their own city and own cult. Just makes sense. Not only as we've seen it consistently so far with Mersophobia and Alderaan, but it looks like we've got the same thing with Selene. And I feel like it's just likely after that point going to go on with Ignia and Biernus. I mean, Ignia maybe he'll be different and he won't have one for whatever crazy psycho like incinerator apocalypse plan he has, but we just gotta wait for right now. And then we get to see Selene, who's just like, oh, Alderaan lost, that was an unfortunate waste of time. And she's like, seemed to kind of just not be bothered by it. She's like, oh, whatever, I guess, like, he's down. I guess my thoughts and hopes for the using the White Witch to make things more interesting is out the window, so I guess I'll just do things myself. So she's gonna be stepping up, and we know she wants to take over the world. She wants to just like bring the world to decimation in order to kind of like make the moon be like more beautiful in comparison. I am so curious of like her setup, because so far, like when we've seen like the Dragon's Mersophobia, he was he's a reformed dragon. He wants to become a better person. Alderaan was more of like the older style of dragons within Fairy Tail, like before they started to kind of want to be with you stuff, live peacefully with them. He was more just that kind of older style. He wanted to conquer and consume and just kind of grow more powerful. Whereas Selene is like this weird cult version. Like, she's like this weird like conqueror of insanity, or not insanity. That's like this weird, I guess, really cult. Like she's got like this weird cultist idea of the moon, and it's gonna be cool to see like with her if she's been active with her crew, because Mersophobia didn't treat his worshippers as anything other than like, they're the people that lived in the same town as him, that they relied on him. With Alderaan, he just kind of saw them all as sustenance, and he wasn't really around while they were worshiping him. And Selene, like, if Selene already has this religious view of the moon and this religious kind of thing going on, then obviously she's going to have like a weird kind of setup with her her followers, that maybe whatever her religious beliefs are about the moon and stuff, they will have as well. I don't know. It's it's definitely something that I really want to see explored. Just not even from like a full expanse of like, I want every single character to be given like a million times of detail and everything. As much as I just want to see this weird kind of setup in there, because this is a dragon who seems to have some weird ideology about the moon. So how this is gonna go, like I said, very intriguing, very interesting, and I very much hype to see more. And then back to Diablos. I think though, out of these ones that we saw, like with Eleftheria, like with Ignia, like with Alderaan, and all the Dragons and stuff, this was definitely one of the, well, I guess we technically saw Alderaan, sort of, but, you know, Selene and whatnot. Like, all the Dragon Gods and everything we saw prior to this, even, like, what we see after this, like, Fairy Tail members. I think the only other thing that, like, got me super hyped was the stuff with, like, Urza and Jalal. Just because it's nice to finally see Jalal being happy. I like the spookiness with Eleftheria, Ignia, and Selene, and, you know, the niceness that came after the Diablo stuff. But obviously the Diablo stuff is what I'm most hyped about. I've been on about this all day. If you check me out on Twitter, I very much have been excited about the new character that we got this chapter, the new guy. So we get back to Diablos, and again, I really like Diablos. I think they're an interesting set. So far, I still don't think they are a villain group. They definitely come off as bad guys, as not bad guys, as antagonists. Because so far, like, all the Dragon Gods, in a way, have at some point been depicted in history as being, like, a dangerous threat. So, the Dragon Eaters going after them, okay, yeah, sure, it makes sense. Like, if these guys are dangerous, and these guys are known throughout history as being, like, terrorists to humanity, then going after them just seems justified already. So, as it were, like, we have this dude, Georg, he's the leader of Diablos, and I just want to see more of Diablos. I'm curious to know where their guild is, and I'm so curious to know of their origins and their lore, because I'm still questionable on where their powers came from originally as Dragon Eaters. I want to know if, like, maybe when all the dragons started to flee, there were a couple others besides the Dragon Gods that got the Giltina and stuff, but they ended up running into these guys, people like this. And there's also the question of, like, maybe Georg is actually, like, from the dragon, like, back during the original Dragon King Festival and, the Dragon Civil War and stuff. And he's, like, Eleftheria or Selene and stuff, whereas in Acnologia, it's like, well, he became, like, a Dragon Slayer who could turn into a dragon, and because of that, he stopped aging. And maybe he's just kind of like this, and he's been using his level of power to, like, hunt down dragons that were still left over, feed, the meat to, like, people that follow him that join his guild, and, stuff's just been going on from there. The mystery of Diablos is what I'm most interested in about, like, their crew. I mean, they've all got really cool designs. I really like the fact that the Slayers in their group, like all their Dragon Slayers, don't have traditional attributes. Like, they're not elements. They're all very strange. I mean, like, look at Fairy Tail prior to their debut. Like, look at older Dragon Slayers. You got Natsu, Fire, Wendy, Sky, and obviously Sky's a little bit different, but reality Sky is just like a different variation of Wind. Godchill, Iron. Like, it's all elements and stuff. And then we start rolling into, I mean, even like when we got into like God Serena's just different elements. And then then we start to roll on into these guys. Like, we've got, here's Kyria, Blade Dragon. Oh, Mad Bull, Armor. And then you got like Nibiru with Clinging. Very strange. I've always really liked the idea of, like, peering away from the traditional elements for the Dragon Slayers. And that's one of the things that Diablos has done for me. And there's the potential that this new character can give me one of the types I've wanted for a long time. There's a couple elements, well, a couple attributes that I've discussed multiple times that I really want. I'll get to that in just a second. But when they're talking, like Georg is like, "Oh, you're saying that Alderaan turned back into the earth or trees? Like essentially, he died and returned to the land." That's one of the things that I'm kind of curious about. In the idea of like if he's actually fully dead or if maybe there's just like a fraction of him that kind of lived on and he's gonna recuperate. Is if he like maybe like he didn't fully just like die and decompose. It's like, oh, he's like merging with the land to kind of regrow a body or something. But they're just kind of talking. They're obviously revealing that Nibiru is, he's gone missing after he went into Dragon Force. I'm actually still in belief that he's going to join up with the Fairy Tail Guild. He's going to be how they get information on Diablos and stuff. But also, like, I'm really hoping that it'll be a little bit of a couple chapters into the arc with Selene and on the mountain. Because here's the thing: you have this Black Moon Mountain. It's this big old mountain. And you have this all fours walking, weird talking dragon eater that you could have kind of like a Gollum level of kind of like presence. Imagine him following like the Fairy Tail members, and they managed to put in like a Lord of the Rings reference when they're like notice him and stuff. I think that would actually be really fun. I really like that. I think that would be fantastic. And plus, I think Nibiru, I think he is a good candidate to join the guild. Like he doesn't seem too bad. He seems like he's a little bit warped in the head, but he's not beyond salvage. And his guild abandoned him. I think after that, like, he deserves to get like to learn what an actual guild that takes care of their own is like. And I like all the members of Diablos so far. That's one of the things I also really like about like the Diablos guild. Is I like all of them a lot. I think they're all really interesting. And I think part of the reason is that the main three with Kyria, Madmol, and Skullion are all being kind of used over a longer period of time. And to where, like, they're going to constantly show up in arcs and then, they're going to at some point leave. And every time they return, it looks like they're going to bring other Dragon Eaters with them. So I think that them having a longer lasting presence makes their characters a lot more fun, as well as it makes them a lot more entertaining and just all around a lot more enjoyable to have around. I like them. I think they're really cool. I really wanted Wraith to join the Fairy Tail Guild, but unfortunately that wasn't the case, but sort of was. Obviously with that, how that all worked out. Man, those were 20 chapters ago. It's crazy. But as it were, we've got Kyria, Madmol, and Skullion. They're just kind of talking and explain to Georg what happened. Georg's giving him a little bit of a shit. He's giving a little bit of shit the fact that they pulled out. And honestly, I think they rightfully pulled out. They were kind of in a dangerous spot. Like they had the Fairy Tail Guild kind of all kind of collecting, and like Natsu with Dragon Force, I still think would be fine beating any of them. But that's Dragon Force. That's the strongest the Fairy Tail Guild has to present at the time. But bring in characters also like Jalal and Laxus, they weren't going to be able to do anything while having to contend with Alderaan and then potentially the White Witch got back up. Like they were smart to leave. They were smart to pull out and be like, okay, we got to be serious. We can't just bring members random. We got to bring our big members. And at that point, that's where Georg goes to introduce a new guy while they're talking about it, because Skullion reveals like, okay, no, I looked into it. Fairy Tail is the strongest guild on the Ishgard continent, and they're known for their high level of combat and battle ability, which we know that is the highest level of aspect of the Fairy Tail Guild. They are very combat orientated. And you go remember back in Tartaros, what was it? Was it Yajima? I'm trying to remember some of the older dudes' names. No. Let me look. It's oh my god. It's stuck in my head. It's the cat dude. His name is like Nikello, I think. I have to look this up, or it's gonna bother this unit. Because Yajima is the old guy that actually liked the Fairy Tail Guild. He had the thinning magic where you become paper thin, and he actually got a little bit of a nice parts in that arc. I actually liked that a lot. Where's that guy in there? Let's see. What was that guy's? Michello or Michello, that's the dude. The little cat dude, he was an asshole. But you remember, like, when he ended up seeing the, Natsu fight at first hand, he was like, this is what a Fairy Tail, like, wizard is like in hand-to-hand combat. Well, rather in combat, up close, like, face to face. He was amazed by it, because we knew that from early on, too. Like, the Fairy Tail wizards are very highly skilled in their craft. Like, you go back and look at, like, during the Lullaby arc, they were, even if they were still really weak at the time in comparison to now, they were still really, like, skilled and highly advanced in whatever magic they have. Remember, like, how fast they were impressed, like, how quick and how rapid Urza's requips were, like how much, like, durability and destructive output Natsu had. The level of speed that Gray's Ice Make was as well, like how fast his crafts could come out. But and them realizing this is good. It's good for them, because now they realize, like, we can't just mess around. We can't just be tiddly-wanking around and just, putting in a half-assed amount of effort. That's not going to beat these guys. And Georg, I think, realizes that. He's like, listen, the next target is the Moon Dragon God, Selene. She's, I've heard some nice things about her. She's built pretty well. So no failing. No failing for in this one. And we did get the nice little part where Kiria's, like, thinking back at Laxus, and man, won't bring up the fact that, she's got a thing for him now. He's like, oh no, not really. I just want to eat him. That's it. It's like, no, you don't. You want to eat something of him, but anyway. But I am really hyped to see this new guy. This guy looks badass. This guy's Suzaku, and I know for a fact, and I feel like I don't know if a lot of people know. I'll just go with it, because if you look it up, you'll find it. Hiromishima's favorite manga is Berserk, and his favorite anime is Code Geass. Suzaku being a character in Code Geass. So I'm wondering if it's a coincidence that this dude's name is Suzaku, or if he's gonna have, name him this and then have a little bit of inspiration off of the character. Like, maybe he'll have a couple of moves in reference to, like, Suzaku with the Lancelot or something. I'm very intrigued to see where this goes. I actually would really like to see some of his techniques have, like maybe his, like, when he goes into, like, gets, like, dragon wings or something, they can kind of look like the Lancelot's, like, when it got the wing edition or something, or he can have, like, a sword style kind of, like, with it. I don't know. Maybe he'll only have one arm. That'd actually be super badass. You can't really see if he's got both. I would assume so, but he's got, like, the one arm visible. I don't know. I'm just thinking right now, like, what like weird stuff could this guy be? And at this point, like, he's revealed that he's one of the Black Dragon Slayer Knights. Actually, I'm really curious, like, I think the next volume or the volume after that will have the official translation for their name, if they're the Black Dragon Slayer Knights or the Black Dragon Slayer Cavalry. I think I'm just going to go with the Knights. I feel like it's easier to say Knights, because then when it's one of them, you could just call them a Black Dragon Slayer Knight instead of one of the Black Dragon Slayer Cavalry. So until the official translation, I'll just go with the Knights for right now. I don't think I've seen Cavalry used again. But Suzaku the Red Dragon. Now, I'm guessing with that naming, that his hair is actually red. If you look at, like, the way that it's shaded, it kind of looks like how Urza's hair is shaded. So I'm guessing it's red, maybe a couple, like, darker parts. Here's the thing that I want to talk about. I mentioned earlier there are three types of magic that I really, really want to see in Fairy Tail. There's a couple types of magic in general that I always am excited to see just because they're badass. One of them has been in Black Clover for a while, and then one of them we got kind of like a bigger character recently with it, and that being blood magic. So I'm wondering, with the red, if he's going to end up being like a blood dragon slayer. Like, essentially, he's going to be like a blood swordsman. And in which case, I'd hope he'd steer clear of Laxus, because either Laxus's red lightning dragon mode would counter. Well, it would get kind of buffed up by this dude, or because it's like blood dragon magic, if he could kind of just, like, prevent Laxus from using the red lightning dragon mode. I don't know. Very curious. I love this guy's design. This looks really cool. Like, he's got the weird long eyelashes, but they're done in a way that makes him look more sleek and less in a silly way. I think the way that they go off to the side just makes it kind of look like he's probably, like, literally like sharp. I mean, he's got that sharp look to his eyes. He's got this badass looking sword. His sword looks super cool. I like the way that his hair's like designed. It reminds me a lot of I think it's just the way that the hair tied it up is it reminds me a little bit of Mark Gear. But other than that, though, not the rest of it. He looks more like kind of like a a swordsman kind of like style with like the top down and stuff. The feather earrings look really cool as well. I think his kimono looks badass. But obviously, the sword is absurdly cool. The sword is super cool looking. This is what I just want to put this out there right now before I continue. And the rest of the chapter, I think, will be a lot easier to go through because for the most part, it's a lot of just kind of like calming down portion. This is the big hype part of the chapter, and I really like that about Diablos. Anytime Diablos is prepping for stuff, they're going pretty hype. This guy's sword is so badass looking. It's got like this weird jagged looking handle with dragon scales on it. This odd kind of like pommel with like this like fang or a claw. Its like sheath is oddly shaped and it has like these ties on it with these rings. And given the shape of the sheath, his sword is probably not going to be a katana either. It's probably going to be some weird curved blade or something. And then the way that the kind of ties there around like near the bottom of the sword, and they kind of like the way they kind of like wrap up, I think that just looks badass too. Like, this dude just looks intimidating. He looks scary. This is a dude that if you saw him, regardless of the series he's in, you'd say, this dude's probably going to be an extremely powerful, badass swordsman. And that's what we're going to get to see. I think the fact that he's got some non-katana looking sword when he's got kind of like almost like a cloth samurai look to him, I think that's just a weird twist. I do. I think that's pretty cool. And like I said, the thing I really want, actually, two things I want to say. One is, it's going to be funny if Rogue sees this guy, because it's like, hey, Rogue, how about you actually, take some notes of what it's going to be like to see a Dragon Slayer who actually uses the sword he carries instead of just sometimes has it on him to never use. But also, Fairy Tail does, in fact, lack in, like, really famous swords. Like, really iconic swords. Like, I know, like, named-wise, it has stuff like Yodo Benizakura and stuff for Urza, but the only sword I can really think of that's, like, design-wise, that's really stand out and iconic is the Celestial Spirit King sword, which I don't even think it's named. And, like, there's a couple series that have some pretty cool, like, swords. Like, was it, One Piece, like, Mihawk's Yoru. And then you run into something like Bleach, where, like, almost every single sword is, like, really iconic looking and badass. But you know what I mean? I've always really wished that Fairy Tail had a more iconic blade or something just to look at and be like, holy shit, look at that sword. Like, it's got a name, it's badass looking, it's used by a really cool person. That's what I'm hoping we can get from Suzaku. And with his title, with his, like, design, I'm really hyped to see this guy just step out. And it's gonna be really cool. I have absolute hype around this character. I know he'll lose eventually, but I'm hoping he gets a badass fight before then. It'd actually be really cool. Like, could you imagine, like, what if his fight is Urza and Jalal? Like, he gets, like, a 2 versus 1. That actually would be really hype, and it would be a really good way to keep his big level of position of being, like, a really powerful character while being beaten by a duo that it would be fair for. Because, like, Urza and Jalal are not pushovers. They're both very, very powerful. Some of the strongest humans on the planet. So if them teaming up, for one, it'd be like, oh, them teaming up beating this guy, yeah, sure. But it'd be like, this guy had to be absurd in order just to be able to take both of them at the same time in order to defeat him. So that alone is really cool. I can't wait. After that, actually, the other part I really liked about the chapter it was very small, but it was very nice to see. Is we get this little town Dramil, which was like a couple of kilometers away from where Alderaan was sleeping, just a good chunk of ways away. And they were like from the government of Giltina, and what they're essentially doing is they had a kind of like observation, like military town kind of like present nearby, just kind of keeping an eye on them in case something happened, which I actually thought that was really cool because it adds a good amount of, like, it gets a good chunk of world building for that area. And again, it makes sense because, like, the military guys just kind of showed up. There was like a weird just kind of like announcement that they were there, and then Alderaan kind of just noped them. So them having like more of a presence in the story, I think is really cool. And I'm actually kind of hoping that we get a little bit more of them. Like, they don't have to be like big vital into plot. I would like to see them just present in a couple times, or kind of like maybe we can find out more about the Giltina kind of like history and like their land. I start the music back up. I gotta get some more music. I just like this one. It's just the one is super long, so it's also like royalty free, and I can just play it, and generally it'll cover most of the video. It'll do a few smaller videos. I won't have to worry about it. But after that point, like, it's just like the characters kind of trying to explain about what's going on. They're talking about Toka and the White Witch. There's some confusion. They're just clarifying up, like, essentially, yeah, Toka is the Exceed, and the White Witch pretty much like possessed her and then took over her body and then would kind of like take her position. So they're just getting everything out in the open. I did really like the the nice little parts, like the Juvia part where you had Juvia go and just do her normal thing on Gray, but this time Gray was pretty happy about it. He was comforting to her as well. Obviously, people being freaked out because from their perspective, they've seen like this game for years. Like, Juvia goes to mess with Gray and be over affectionate. Gray like rejects her and is like, he's like, oh, he's being overly clingy and stuff. But now he's accepting of her, and this was after like a small course of time where they were separated from the guild. So for them, they're probably like, what the hell happened in the however many weeks to months you guys are away? And then, like, obviously also on the cover as well, like, just because we're talking about ships for a second, it was cool that nice opening page, like the cover on this chapter actually had to do with the events of this last chapter in this arc. And you got to see Natsu and Lucy on there, and I think a lot of people were happy about that. And then they obviously got Gray and Juvie in there. You got a little bit of Gachio and Levi, with Gachio saying how he's gonna tell his kid how he was bigger than when he says like he was as big as a mountain, he was way bigger than a mountain. He was absurdly bigger than a mountain. You can see how small the mountains are compared to his damn feet. But after that point, like, there's also the part with Kana and Lucy, and they're just drinking. I think that part was pretty fun. Weird to see Lucy drink, but obviously she's got to be like what, 20 now or 19, so she should be fine. Because like, I think drinking in their Fairy Tail, like in the world, at least in Fiore, is like 14 or 15. I'd have to go back and double check, but she's definitely within age of it. But like the rest of the chapter, for the most part, after that, it's like they're kind of just doing their thing. They're being rowdy. They're having a good time. They're being fun, and it's like 3 days of their cooldown before they get into some crazy events and what's to come up next. But after that, it's just comfort. It's comfort with a little bit of foreshadowing. You have Jalal and Urza, and they're just kind of talking, and Jalal is bringing up the fact that he's not going to kind of just like dread and gloom over his past and his decisions he's made and stuff that he's done, and it's gonna be like, yeah, I'm still gonna acknowledge the bad things that I've done and reflect on them, but I'm not gonna let those hold me down. I'm gonna live for tomorrow and keep kind of just like keep moving forward. And after that point, he talks about how he can freely love people now, and then he embraces Urza, and then Urza's like acknowledges that and kind of like hugs him back. And that's, man, the shippers. Listen, I really like Urza and Jalal's ship. I really like both their characters, so this makes me happy. I wouldn't consider myself a shipper though. I like ships that are normal in the series, that actually make sense, and the normal progression of just like seeing the characters develop and then grow and stuff. I know that there's a lot of like actual people that would take the title of shipper and are going crazy after this chapter, especially this last part, because like Urza's still really popular in the series, Jalal's really popular, and their ship's been just in rocky waters for a long time. And especially after near the end of the chapter, I just want to say there's some ominous stuff there, because Celine's up next, and the fact that in the Jalal and Urza page there's the moon there, and I'm wondering if that's foreshadowing for what's to come with Celine, if she's gonna end up, like I said, messing with this ship and doing some shenanigans. We'll have to wait and see. There's definitely some really good stuff up and coming. I'm really hyped to see what's next in the 100 Years quest. I really want to see Diablos do stuff. I can't wait to see this Suzaku guy make his move. I can't wait to see what this guy's power is. Like, maybe it's gonna be like, maybe it'll be like red, kind of like how Sting's is white, and how Sting is like, oh yeah, he's got holy magic and light kind of like combined, but also he can like apparently eat stuff that's just white in general. I don't know what that would be with with Suzaku. I don't know if I don't think he's gonna be fire. The thing is, like, already with Natsu as the main character, it's like if we get a fire character in there, it's kind of like, oh no, he's got to steer clear away from Natsu, or he's in a dangerous spot. But also with Ignis, it's like I don't think we need another fire character right now. So I think he's gonna have some. I'm really hoping blood powers. I'm really hoping he's a blood dragon. I've been wanting that. Blood, plasma, and radiation are like my 3 wish list types for the dragon. So if I can get at least one of those, if I can get at least one, I'll be happy. I'll be really happy if I can get at least one. But anyway, other than that, though, comment below, thumbs up the video from the like button, subscribe button, and check out my other videos. But other than that, I appreciate everyone who's already subscribed, and I thank you all for listening. Bye.